Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third IFED Night Talk. My name is Andrea from Florence, but tonight I'm known as Andrea King. The purpose of these interviews is to find out what's behind a great professional who is well known on the world stage. In other words, what is the difference that make a difference in the profession and in the private life of this my and our friends. Tonight, we have the honor of hosting Professor Nitzan Bichacho from Tel Aviv and Dr. David Winkler from Copenhagen in Denmark. So, let's start. Nitzan, what is your story? How did you end up doing what you're doing now?
Hi, Andrea. Hi, David.
Hi, Nitzan. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, it was by chance. You know, I did not plan for it, like most of the important things that happened in my life. Today, I can say that I was very lucky because I love what I do. But when I was younger, in Israel, you graduate high school and then you go for several years to serve in the army. And towards the end of the army service, my dad, that was a pediatrician, a physician, talked to me and told me, look, Nitzan, you are a pretty talented boy. You had lots of hobbies. What are you going to do? I told him, I don't know. I never thought about it. He told me, well, you cannot become a lawyer because you do not write. I don't know if you know, but I'm dysgraphic. It's very hard for me to write. I can memorize very well, but even as a young boy and later on, I don't write almost. It, but by the way, those years, it was not something that was accepted or even diagnosed. They diagnosed me as a dysgraphic when I was about to end my army service. But never mind. So lawyer is out of the question. Anything to do with numbers for me is very, very boring. And then he told me, you could be a very good physician, but unfortunately, you will need to work in hospitals. There is a hierarchy there, and you don't like to obey people just because of their title. So you will have a hard time, and your superiors will have probably even harder time. Why don't you go and study dentistry? You will have a lot of time for your hobbies. You don't need to work hard. You will earn reasonable money to live okay. I knew nothing about dentistry. So I told him that I don't know what is dentistry. I mean, I don't know how they live. What does it mean? He told me, well, go and visit some dentists and see how dentist lives are in Tel Aviv, because I moved from Haifa, from where I grew up, to Tel Aviv during the army service. So I called several dentists in the yellow pages because I didn't know nobody, and nobody accepted me for a visit, except one that was not exactly a dental office, it was a dental lab. And for me, dental lab and dental office was kind of the same thing. So I went to this dental lab. Apparently, it happened to be the best laboratory in Israel those days. And the owner of the lab was very kind to me. I was a soldier. And he told me, look, whenever you have free time, you are invited to come here and look what we do. And within very few weeks, I started to play with gypsum and then with wax and carve and things, and I enjoyed it very much. So I went back to Dad and told him, look, Dad, there is something that is called dental laboratory. I'm going to be a lab technician. My dad looked at me and told me, okay, first study dentistry, become a doctor, and then if you want, go and become a lab technician. So I started to study dentistry in Jerusalem. I must confess that the studies were pretty boring for me. I mean, I was a very good student, but I was more interested in other things than what they taught us. And many things that we were taught those days didn't make sense to me. And I was asking questions, and some of my professors didn't like very much the fact that I was trying to understand what they could not explain, of course. And after I graduated, I came to my dad and told him, okay, now I am a DMD, I'm a doctor, but I'm not going to practice dentistry because it's boring, it's not rational, it's not for me. And I was very lucky to meet one day a French dentist that was kind of teaching us when we were at the last year, we were senior students. She was volunteering, coming once a week or something like that. And he invited me to his clinic. He had almost no patients because he was a newcomer from France. And he showed me slides and models. And I was looking at the models that were copper plated, and I could not understand what I was looking at. It was so beautiful. The shapes were so coherent. I asked him what it is. And he told me, what do you mean? These are models of patients that they treated back in France. I told him, but who prepared those teeth? He said, what do you mean? And then he showed me slides. And then I understood that there might be a different dentistry that is not only biological, not only American-oriented those days. My school in Jerusalem was very much American-oriented. But there is another face of dentistry that is more accurate, that is more harmonious, that attracted me. And then I decided to try, and the rest is history.
Very interesting, Nitzan.
Definitely.
And what about you, David?
Well, I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter than Nitzan's. I grew up with dentistry. My dad had a one-man practice on Long Island in New York. And he was self-professed the world's worst dentist. He had to cheat to get out of dental school from State University of New York in Buffalo in 1940. He could not carve a tooth. He couldn't change a light bulb. That was my job to do when I came home from school. But he was a great people person. Everybody loved Doc. It was a small suburban area on Long Island. And so I grew up with dentistry in the house. And he'd come out in between patients and he'd sit in front of the TV set, slurping his tea like, he was the son of a divorced Hungarian, Ukrainian hairdresser, my grandmother. Anyway, he'd hear the door open to the waiting room and he'd say, God damn it, here comes another live one. And he just hated the work he did. But I had it in my blood, I guess. I knew I didn't want to do medicine. I can't stand the sight of blood. Blood's okay in the oral environment. It's fine. It's pink. The mucosa is supposed to be penetrated. The skin is not supposed to be penetrated. That's my feeling about surgery. Anyway, I was very politically active. Our neighbor on Long Island was the head of the New York State Democratic group. And I met JFK when I was 6 years old, because at that time there was no internet. And they'd come around to all the leaders of the Democratic Party and they'd have coffee and cake and this sort of thing. And my mom was extremely politically active, very liberal. Now, a person once said, liberals are people who are 10% to the left of center in good times and 10% to the right of center. It affects them personally. My mom was pretty much 20% to the left in all times. Anyway, so I met JFK then as a 6-year-old. And when I was 14, I guess it was 67, I went to summer camp like many New Yorkers do. And the owner of the camp was neighbors with Bobby Kennedy, who was senator from New York at that point. And there were 10 of us that spent 24 hours with Bobby Kennedy in the Senate office buildings when I was just 14. So I was very politically engaged, meeting these people. You can feel the charisma. And in 1972, when Nixon had a landslide victory, I said, I had enough of this. And it was the Vietnam War. I grew up during the 60s. So I said, I'm getting out of here. So I went to Copenhagen. I had done my bachelor's in Rutgers University in New Jersey and Syracuse University in New York. And I went to Copenhagen and I stayed. I became a pipe carver because Denmark's very well known for pipes. I did that for a number of years. I did dental technology with a Danish technician who my father had known, doing gold and acrylic work. I never did porcelain work. And I realized that I was at least as smart as the dentist who was sending me the impressions where you couldn't read anything on the impression. And I applied to dental school in Copenhagen. And I went there. I met my first wife there the first week of dental school. And during the 5 years we were there in dental school, we had a kid. Then I moved to, I was in Copenhagen then. Right now, Andrea, I'm just in Denmark, not in Copenhagen. So the introduction was slightly faulty.
Okay.
I moved to the West Coast where she came from, my ex-wife came from. Small village of 1,200 people. And I was, the foreigner there. Everybody were farmers and commercial fishermen. And I had the practice there for a number of years. And then Tiddu, who I met in 1987, he came to Copenhagen for a dental meeting. And we just hit it off along with his technician, Carlo Nepite. And Tiddu was pushing me to come join him in Windsor. And I finally made the jump. 1997, I renounced American citizenship because the Danes would not give me citizenship without renouncing previous citizenship. So I'm Danish. I don't sound it. I don't look it. But I'm Danish now. And I worked with Tiddu for 13 years and I wanted to get back to general dentistry. So I opened a small practice in the neighboring farming town, which I had for 11 years. And I left that, or I sold it 14 months ago. So I'm now semi-retired in Denmark with the kids and grandkids. Some people call me semi-retarded instead, but I've always been that. But, I just loved, Nitzan and I came into the academy together. I don't know, Nitzan, were you at the Glen Eagles meeting in 1990? Because I don't remember meeting you there, but I remember 1991, you and I were in the program together in Barcelona. And we actually had one slide together there that was the same. We took it from the History of Dentistry, the book of some Incan or Mayan jewelry on teeth. So we grew up together in the academies. And that's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Nitzan, you said previously that I think before we started recording this, that the European Academy is a family, is your second family. And it definitely is for me too. The people in that we meet in the academy, the people we know in the academy has just made life wonderful for the last 32 years. Just love it.
Yeah.
So that's
very,
my
very
story.
Nice. Very, very nice. Both stories very, very interesting. And Nitzan, among the activities that you enjoyed the most when you started, what did you have to stop doing in order to obtain your impressive results? In other words, what was the price to get where you are?
Well, I stopped doing amalgams many years ago. I love doing amalgams. I love to carve, and I had pretty nice results. And when you evolve and you understand and you look very, very deep into what you get, you understand that there are and there might be some evolvements in your profession that you need to learn, to try, and if you're convinced that they're better, then you need sometimes to leave old habits and to learn and to master new techniques, new materials, and new concepts. But I guess that you meant, what did I have to sacrifice in my private life?
Exactly. Very interesting what you said about the amalgams. That will connect to another question that I'm going to ask. But yes, I meant more on a personal aspect.
Well, I think there are no free meals, and my character is pretty obsessive. You know, I need to do always the best that I can. It's not always the best if you put it in a scale of other more talented people, but for me, I must do the best that I can. Uh, this is a characteristic feature that you cannot fight and you should accept it.
I see.
And once I got into dentistry, I started to read a lot, more than any friend of mine that went through the channels of postgraduate specialization. I never went through any ordinary specialization. I never went to any course after I graduated dentistry. I read at home or in the clinic. I spent lots of hours trying to understand better. And if I could not understand, or if there were some holy cows that did not make sense to me, to try and to change it. And to find new ways in order to have better results, to treat better my patients. So this means that I could not spend enough time with my families during those years. I did spend, of course, time with my kids. I have 5 children. The elder son is almost 40 years old, and the younger son is 3 years old. And in between, I have 2 daughters and another son. So all of them did get a lots of love from their daddy. But looking retrospectively, there is no doubt that I invested a lot of time in the profession, and this came, I think, on the account of spending more time with the families during those days. And I believe that this is a very, very common story. If you talk to anybody who became a prominent figure in his profession, whatever the profession is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and David, you look like a person that really cares about the family, the kids, the grandsons, granddaughters. What did you have to stop doing when you started dentistry?
Well, I had my daughter when we were in dental school. We were students, both myself and my ex-wife. She was a year ahead of me in dental school. I prioritized my kids as much as I could. Story is a bit like Nitzan's, of course, as he mentioned. Most of us who have been out there, back then there was no such thing as Zoom or webinars or things. We traveled every weekend or every other weekend to some course. And living in a very insular country like Denmark is, and Denmark back then was 97% white Nordic Protestant population was. And they have something here called Jente law, the law of Jente, where you're not allowed to think you're better than anybody else. You should be happy with the mediocrity that Denmark searches for. So the high end tries to come up to the middle, and the low end tries to come up to the middle, which means you have very little high end, but you have very little low end, which is a nice society to live in. But if you have any kind of ambition, or you have any kind of inquisitive mind, and as I mentioned earlier, growing up in the 60s, with the Vietnam War, we were taught to question everything. That was in school, we questioned everything. You didn't take anything at face value, and you don't do that in Denmark. And so after I'd been in Denmark for about 10 years, after I qualified at Royal College of Dentistry, I decided I'm going to go out and start seeing people. I'm going to see what's going on outside the world of Copenhagen or Aarhus dental school. And I met people, and one of the first people I met was John McLean. And John took me under his wing. Yes, I am outgoing, I'm brash, I'm obnoxious at times. We know that. I'm very reactive and emotional. But for some reason with John, I just kept quiet, and I was a sponge. I let John teach me a lot, and it wasn't clinical dentistry. He taught me a lot about how to be a person. He's an Englishman, an aristocratic Englishman, wasn't it? But so he rounded off some of those provocative, rough edges of mine. Anyway, I traveled with the kids as much as I could to conferences. My ex-wife, who was a dentist, hated dentistry. It was a job for her rather than a profession and a passion. So she never went with me. I mean, if she went with these to all the conferences when I met Nitzan, traveled around the world, she could have had the world's best education. She just wasn't interested. So I took my kids with me as much as I could. But it was a sacrifice. It contributed to the end of the first marriage. She was a farmer's daughter from the west coast of Denmark, a village of 1,200 people. I came from New York. I mean, big difference. So there was a contributory factor. So it's a sacrifice, you could say. But the relationship I have with my kids is like this. I mean, we are just so tight. And when I told my daughters, especially my daughter, I told her I'm going to leave Windsor, I'm going to retire. She said, it's about time, Daddy. And she said, we've never lived close enough where I can come by for a cup of tea or a glass of wine. We've always had to plan it in advance. Now she lives 5 minutes away. She just called today. Can I take care of the kids tomorrow afternoon? Of course I can. You know, this is what life's about. It should be about. Nitzan, you're right. I mean, everybody in the European Academy is passionate about the job. I thought I would work until I was 80, but COVID pandemic pulled the rug out from under me emotionally and financially. And I said, enough's enough. And it was hard to make. Nitzan, you know, I mean, we used to make jokes when we were in the academy or when we were the council together, and you were my president-elect. People would ask, how do you get along? I said, great. Nitzan does things right, and I get it done on time. Because Nitzan, you know how to talk to people. You know how to work things out with people. I react. Many people say I overreact. I'm overly sensitive. But people know who I am because of that. I don't hide my emotions. And that's also sacrifice. You know, it has led to some sacrifices in my life, you can say. So that's where I'm at.
I didn't know about this side of you, but I'm gonna go back on this.
Okay.
Back to you, Nitzan. I've been known you for many years, and you are one of my preferred mentors together with David. You always look so calm. Always look so calm. Can you please tell us how you can do that? I really want to know this. Is it true or not?
Maybe the cigar.
If I could cut in here, I might say something. Nitzan can look calm because he knows where he's coming from. He knows what he needs to say, what he wants to say. Nitzan is one of the smartest dudes I know. That's both theoretically, clinically, as a dentistry, and as a person. So I think when you're at that level, I think it's easy to be calm. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, it's interesting.
That's my feeling about you, brother.
But Nitzan, did you find this feature sometimes a limitation or always an advantage?
Let David keep on answering because he's answering much better than I.
No. You're not getting away with that.
Look, I'm trying for many years to live my life in a way that I will not regret anything that I did or I didn't do. I'm trying to give to myself reports almost every day about what I did or what I didn't do. If I believe that I made mistakes, if I believe that I didn't behave right to anybody, I will apologize. So this type of living means that you do not spend time with people that you believe that you don't want them to be next to you. This means that you don't waste your time in parties or in different occasions that you cannot really get together, but just, on the surface, chit-chatting. I don't like those things. And I believe that once you are, happy with yourself, there shouldn't be lots of incidences and reasons to get out of yourself and to burst. But if you would have spoken to the people that live with me, sometimes I have my times where I lose my temper. Not very frequently, but yeah, it might happen. I believe that losing a temper doesn't contribute to anything. It is a natural reaction many times, but once we are able to control it, I believe that we can gain much more.
This is something that I always admired on you. First of all, I think that this is my personal opinion. This requires a lot of courage, and I always enjoyed your way of being spontaneous. And this is something that I really appreciate. And I thank you for teaching me this. And David, on your side, it looks like you like everybody. Is that true? Come on. What does
No,
disturb you in people?
no. I mean, yes, I have a very large network, and I wish my clinical abilities were as good as my networking abilities. I mean,
Everybody loves you. I would like to
no,
know
no,
how
no,
that
no,
this
no.
is possible.
The Brits will call me Marmite. You either love me or you hate me, because what you see is what you get. And I am the emotional type person. I do spend time. I've always spent time when I've gone to conferences, staying in touch with people immediately afterwards. I mean, going back to the late 80s, early 90s, we didn't have emails, we didn't have faxes. And it would be Christmas cards. I'd write to every colleague I had met, the previous year, and stay in touch with them. And I think people do appreciate that effort that is made. Um, I don't want everybody to like me. I want everybody just to listen to me and then say that you're an idiot afterwards. They don't agree with me. I'm fine with that. I have learned, because dentistry is such a small field, it's borderline incestuous, that if I do say something, I better be able to back it up and mean it, because it will get back to that person or that company eventually. So, Nitzan, you are very, very good, clinically backing your questions up, your critique of a presentation up, because you have the background for that. And I've learned, I transferred that to the social side of things also, that I make sure that I know what I'm talking about when I'm criticizing somebody, if that makes any sense. So.
May I add something, Andrea?
Of course, yes.
Regarding David, he just described the way that he was practicing dentistry. And one thing that was always very impressive about David was that he was never competing with the elite dentists that had different surroundings of expressing their abilities. And he might have been competing with himself to become better, but this is something very unique, to look at somebody that is in the surrounding of the best dentists in the world, knowing that because of the vicinity where he is practicing, it's not possible for him to do those things, accepting it, and at the same time not be envy of all those people around him. On the contrary, looking at them, flattering, supporting them, this is very unique. And how can you love such a person?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nitzan. That's very, very kind. So I'll have to get my daughter to get me some tissues now. I'll get tears in my eyes. But no, thank you. It's I never mentioned that about the system I worked in. Denmark is a national health service system, and your prices are dictated by the government. And when I met Tidu and I met Carlo Nepute, I started using Carlo as my technician, but financially it was ruinous. I just couldn't make a go of it. So that's the reason I'm living in a very, very small 95 square meter house that we love. And we don't have material things, but we have a lot of friends and we have family, and that's important. But thank you for those words, Nitzan. That means a lot to me coming from you.
Wow. I love these people. You know that, right? Anyway, Nitzan, what do you think about the comfort zone? Is that a limitation? Is that an advantage to be able to live with it? What do you think?
Mm. It's a tricky question for me, and I will explain to you why. I am a non-conformist in my character. And I question everything, and many times I revolutionize things or concepts or whatever I was learning, because I think that we can make it better. I don't accept whatever there is just because it is there. I accept it if it is good, and if I think that it can be better, I will try myself to do something to change it. In my close vicinity, in the profession, I mean. This means that my natural comfort zone is not to be not to be comfortable.
Okay.
Interesting. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it is very natural that we all have our comfort zones that kind of protect us, that we are used to, that we know how to play within the rules. Sometimes, in order to get out of the comfort zone, you need to pay prices, whether they are emotional prices or any type of prices. And people usually do not like to pay prices easily. I believe that the only way to evolve is from time to time to get out of whatever is your comfort zone and to experience even uneasy or new experiences, because then you might know new, I would say, entities that will make you a better person or a better professional. So, Andrea, if all our friends in the academy would stay in their comfort zone, we would still make impression with copper bands and compound. And no, I mean, we did evolve and we went to elastomeric impressions, and some of us even went into digital scans. And for those who are established within a certain way of working or workflow, to get out of it means to get out of your comfort zone. And I believe that all the leaders in our profession are getting out from their comfort zone in a daily basis.
I see. Yeah, and this brings me, David, to another question, which is very connected. How important is to be able to change? Okay, because, for example, why one friend or colleague should change something that works really, really well, like a protocol, or also on the personal side, why is it important to change? And I'm going to ask you this question because you change many cities, countries, mentalities, offices, and so you are. I think that you are the best person to ask this question.
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer it. It goes back to the comfort zone, and having seen your interviews with Ronnie and Dave and Stefano and Claffey, I knew the comfort zone question was going to come up.
I love it. I love this question.
It's a great question. You've taken it one step further. Is it important to change? Honestly, no, it's not important to change if that's not your mentality. It demands a certain strength, inner strength, to realize that if you're going to take something new on, whether it's a new material, new technique, new protocol, there'll be mistakes, and it will not always function the way you expected it to. When you see, I remember I asked Bobby Winter years ago, he did the most wonderful porcelain fused to metal lower anterior bridge. I can't remember, I think it was a 6-unit bridge. It was in every lecture, you knew it was coming up. It was porcelain fused to metal. At that time, they were doing Willie Geller crowns or Willie's glass technique, or I won't tell you what Dr. Mack called it. That's a different story. Anyway, I asked Bobby, I said, why would you even change when you can get that perfect result? And it was a perfect result. Why change? Well, because that's how progress, that's what progress does. That's how you move forward. But you have to have the mentality and the inner strength to be willing to make those sacrifices that will come, because there will be mistakes. But in principle, I mean, some of the work that was done by our mentors who are now gone, the Lloyd Millers of the world, the McLeans, the Shearers, will stand the test of time. And it was not done digitally. It was not done with all ceramic. I mean, I worked with Kenny Mellement with Dicor years ago. I didn't work with him, but I was introduced to him back in 1987. What do we need? A full ceramic crown? No, because porcelain fused to metal worked.
Yeah,
but
and Kenny paid a price for using those Dicors.
He did. I still have 2 in my mouth. Okay, there's still 2 that function from 1989.
You're lucky.
Yeah, they're probably the only 2 from that still function. But you have to be willing to make those sacrifices, pay the price of failures. If you don't have that mentality, then stick with what you're doing. If you think it's good enough and your patients think it's good enough and you're content with what you're doing, that it is still fun for you to do it that way, then stick with it. So, and when you work in a very small practice under a National Health Service payment scheme, you can't afford to spend $50,000 on a scanner. You really can't. So you don't have to do it.
Okay.
I hope I'm not disappointing any of the young kids out there, but it's
very interesting. It's very interesting. Nitzan, what do you tell yourself in difficult moments? And I'm not talking only in your practice, in your profession, but in your life. What do you tell yourself to keep going and to stay straight, following your direction, your mission?
I think that I know that I have to go through the difficulty. I know that I have to solve the problem, and I know that I will do it. I know that I will do it. So then it becomes less difficult. Once you know that you are going to go through it, and you know that you will cope with that, I believe that you become more analytical and less emotional. But if it is very difficult, I might go to the other room and cry. And
sorry to interrupt dentistry, but Kathy just came up with our newest challenge. This is outside my comfort zone. His name's Toby. You want to say hi, Toby, to my very, very good friends? That's my brother in the bottom. That's Nitzan in the bottom, and that's my son. That's my son Andrea up there. So he's our challenge. Kathy now gets up in the middle of the night with him. You can bend down and say hi.
Hi, Kathy. Hi.
So you wanted us to keep this personal, Andrea. So these are the most important things in our lives right now. So
picking up poop.
This is a great message, on my opinion.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Nitzan. It's just Kathy came up with Toby there, so it's.
You don't have to excuse yourself at all.
Okay.
So Nitzan, were you done with your answer? You want to say something more, or?
No, I'm done.
Okay, and what about you? What did you say? What do you tell yourself, David?
What was the question?
What do you tell yourself when you are struggling, when you are kind of lost? If this ever happened to you, what do you tell yourself? What is your...
That's a very good question. What do I tell myself? I live with a lot of guilt. I think the I won't say the religious, but the cultural background is filled with guilt, and it's always my fault, and it's very difficult. I do take things home with me. What do I tell myself? It's another day. I wake up in the morning and tackle the problem at that point. Try to. If I still don't have a solution, I try to bury it for a while during the day. It sometimes comes up again in the middle of the night. I'm not made of Teflon, so it's not like water off a duck's back. I do take things on board. And to be honest, at the age of 69, I haven't come up with a good solution as to how to get myself out of these problems, or how to repress these issues that maybe in the greater scheme of things aren't that important. So I don't have a good solution for you for that. If I had that, I would patent it and I'd sell it and I'd make a fortune.
And you would be the richest in the world, maybe.
Exactly. Exactly.
And Nitzan, if you would have a magic wand, what would you change in your life?
Oh, I think that I'm very blessed with my life. As long as my dear ones are happy and healthy, and I'm happy and healthy, I don't think that there is a particular thing that I would like to change, actually. I mean, I'm very, very living very well with myself, with my decisions, with my choices. If I feel that something should be changed or modified, then I will do it.
Wow. David?
Magic wand.
How would you use your magic wand?
Well, since our relationships are based on dentistry. In dentistry, I probably would have left Denmark earlier after I qualified and not worked so many years on the Danish West Coast in the farming community. And I mentioned this to Nitzan before. I would have put myself under his wing. I mean, Nitzan, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here, but when we knew each other, Bernard was a mentor to you, to a number of us. And I remember 1997 on the beach in Cannes, I think Galip had just come back from the States at that point, and you introduced Galip to the group. You were very, very good at doing for the next generation as was done for you previously. I would have probably hooked myself on the Nitzan's coattails clinically. I've actually said to you, your clinical abilities, skills, talent kept on going like this, and mine were plateaued. Good enough, but didn't get to where it could have gone. That's professionally. I would have maybe liked to have had the first marriage work, but we got two great kids out of it who I have a great relationship with. And I'm very blessed that I found Kathy, who knows nothing about dentistry, knew nothing about dentistry. She is the world's worst dental patient, but she's the most supportive person. I mean, she's come to every meeting since I've met her. She's become part of the family, and it's thanks to people like Nitzan, Andrea, your father, that have accepted Kathy as a member of the group without being a dentist. And that's the strength of the European Academy, especially, that it is a family. I mean, I have not missed a meeting at all. I've gone to 31 straight yearly meetings because it's written in stone in my book to be with family members. And two of you, I mean, I called you my son, Andrea, back when I think your dad wasn't at the meeting. I said, I'll take care of you. And Nitzan, I called you my brother, just from another mother, since we've met each other. It's my magic wand would be just to pass that on to this next generation, these opportunities, and get them away from the screen. I'm sorry, Zoom and YouTube videos and webinars. It's not how you learn stuff. It's not how you become a better person. The hell with being a better dentist, but becoming a better person, it's got to be face to face. It's across the bar, knocking back whiskeys with colleagues until 3 a.m. I'd like to pass that message on to the next generation, next two generations. This computer world It's not virtual. Right now, I want to give both of you guys hugs. And it just doesn't work on the screen here, guys. So,
but we will do soon, David. We will do soon.
Magic wand, I'll invent that we can do that. Okay, that's my magic wand.
Yeah. This is the last question before the final game, I would call it. Nitzan, would you please tell us your preferred quality you see on David?
Should I leave the room?
No, you should stay. You said, is it difficult for you to accept compliments? Do you?
Yes.
Yes, so you better stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nitzan, what do you think about David?
Well, I think that David has a huge heart and is a giver. He's not a taker. He's compassionate. He is a person that you can count on 100%. As a human being, this is the best friend a person can wish for, because these are the most important things in our lives. In order to be happy, you need to be surrounded by few people that are close to you, whether they are your family members or your very close friends. And this is much more important than your career. It's much more important than the account that you have in your bank. This is what can cause you happiness. And this has been proven scientifically. Harvard psychological faculty has been undergoing through a research for the last 100 years, and they keep on finding that these are the most important factors for a human being to become happy. And once you have a friend like David, he makes you happy. What can you ask more?
I agree.
Thank you, Nitzan.
David, it's your turn. What is the best quality you see in Nitzan?
Well, I think I've said it a couple of times already. Big network. I know hundreds, thousands of people. I have a handful of people that I know I can call and get honest advice from. Or if the proverbial fecal matter had hit the fan, I know he'd be there to help me out one way or another. Nitzan is, as I said, one of the smartest guys I know and one of the most giving guys I know. And as I said, I wish I didn't ask him to take me under his wing clinically back then, because he gives and he knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't show it off. It's there are too many of the people we know that brag about or let us know how good they are. Nitzan doesn't do that. He just sits up there. He's got his beautiful cigar, just smoking that, sitting back, relaxing, and he'll give you the advice. He'll give you the input that is needed. You can't ask for a better person than that. I mean, those 4 years or the 8 years we had together in the Council of the European Academy, I think we did some wonderful things. So there was the golden age, I think, of the European Academy. It got us through the teenage years of the Academy, which are always difficult, whether it's a society academy or a personal growth. And Nitzan, was supportive as hell with me, because I do not do things diplomatically. And Nitzan was very good at, David, hold back, let's do it right. So I'll always be thankful, always be grateful for what Nitzan has given me. So
this is great. Now we are close to the end, and I would like to play a little game with you. So I'm going to read a few brief questions, and I would like you to answer one before the other. Very, very quick, just 1 second, not even thinking too much. So for example, tech-wise, Nitzan, would you prefer traditional agenda or smartphone?
No.
Yes, since COVID, many things, priorities have changed in my life. I have a collection of very nice watches.
Good. And what about you, David?
Well, I'll let listen. You can finish that one because I was with you on Sicily.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nitzan, did I interrupt you?
No, I just want to tell you that they're all in the safe. For the last couple of years, I used only.
I agree. I'm an iWatch, Apple Watch.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Travel.
I had
Mickey Mouse. Yeah.
Yeah.
My kids can put it, the grandkids put Mickey Mouse on.
And Nitzan, travel. Do you prefer nature travels or city travels?
I prefer both. My life, way of life brought me more to city travels because of the way that I was living professionally, but I love both. I think that each travel has its own merits.
Good. And David?
Definitely city travels, except I have my happy place north of Boston in this little village called Ogunquit, Maine, where I've been going since the 50s. And that's the only beach place I really want to go to. Kathy hates beaches. She has Irish skin. And she puts Factor 50 on, she puts a hat on, she puts a sundress on, she puts the parasol up, and she takes everything under the palm tree. So she might as well just be in a penthouse apartment somewhere. So we're definitely city people.
I see. And what is your preferred car, Nitzan? Sport car versus elegant?
Well, for many years, it was a sport car. I changed last year to a sport SUV, which is elegant and sport, but much more comfortable. I don't need to bend when I get in and out.
And I have a feeling on your answer, David, but let's hear it.
Well, when I moved to Denmark here a year ago, Danish prices are quite high. So I invested in a beautiful, absolutely beautiful black Kia Picanto that goes from 0 to 60 in about 3 hours and 20 minutes. And it gets me around. I think my lawnmower for the little piece of lawn I have to cut has a larger engine than the Kia Picanto. No, I'm not into cars at all. So.
I see. I see. This is interesting. And we are at the end of the interview. And as you can see, behind two great and very famous professionals, there are even greater and even more important people, persons. And to me, I would like to thank you both because you have been, I hope you know it, but I'm going to tell you right now, you have been very, very important in my profession and more in my personal life. I consider you guides that I very often think on how I would like to become or behave or anything else as an example. Thank you very much for everything you did. So I would like to thank you again, Nitzan, David. It has been a great learning experience. And I look forward to see you in the future in 3D. I thank you all for the participation. And I invite you to join us again for the next IFED Night Talk in about a month. Thank you very much, Nitzan. Thank you very much, David.
Thanks, Nitzan. Thank you, Andrea. It's been a pleasure.
Hugs to you.
See you in Bordeaux or in Denmark.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.